Many who come seeking ask with trembling voice, what is real and what is shadow, for the eyes behold a world, yet the soul whispers that all is passing. I have seen in the trance of spirit that man walks as if in a dream, and yet the dream holds weight, and consequence, the chair beneath you feels solid, the sky above seems endless, yet these things are as garments worn by a deeper truth. Reality is not the stones or the walls. It is the law that causes them to be, as it is written in the Holy Record, in Him we live and move and have our being. So what you call real is only the echo of the mind. Divine, when the soul rests in silence, it knows that all about us is a lesson, a pattern, a classroom for growth. The very breath you take is not your own. It is lent to you for a season. When I gazed inward, I saw that every life, every form, every event is woven with threads of meaning. It is not accident that you sit here at this moment, nor chance that you wonder about the nature of the world. The law of cause and effect, what some call karma, arranges the very stage upon which you act. What is reality, then, if not a sacred story told through matter and time? One man may say the world is a machine, another may call it an illusion. But I tell you, it is both less and more, for it is spirit clothed in vibration, energy taking on the cloak of shape. The senses deceive, they whisper permanence, but in the unseen, all shifts and all is guided. In the visions I have been given, reality is like a book written in invisible ink. Only when the light shines do the letters appear, and when the light departs, they vanish once more. Thus what you see is contingent upon what greater mind permits you to see. Think of your nights of dreaming. When images rise so vivid, you believe them, until you wake and call them unreal. How then can you be certain that this waking is not also another dream, fashioned by a higher hand for your learning? As the apostle wrote, now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Reality is not the glass, not the darkened image. It is the source that casts the image. And the marvel is this, that even in the shadow, the soul may choose love, may learn patience, may discover the presence of God. This is the true measure of reality, not the things that pass away, but the eternal law that remains. When you ask me what is real, I answer that which cannot be destroyed, that which endures when form dissolves. All else is but the page upon which the divine hand writes, and when the page is turned, a new world begins. Have you considered that humanity may be walking upon one of only 3 roads, and that all of history, with its triumphs and tragedies, is simply the unfolding of one of these paths? In the visions of the Spirit, it has been revealed that a civilization may first destroy itself before reaching its full power, burning away its potential through pride, greed, and the misuse of knowledge. Great empires have risen in splendor, only to collapse beneath the weight of their own corruption, and their ruins testify that the first road is not a myth, but a warning written in stone. The second road is more subtle, for it is when a people gain the capacity to fashion realities, to shape existence itself, and yet they turn away in fear or selfishness, refusing to use the gift that was entrusted to them. This path is one of stagnation, where souls circle endlessly without growth, where light dims because it is hidden and not shared. The third road, which many resist yet cannot escape, is that we already walk in a reality fashioned by greater hands, a realm designed for our instruction, an ancestral pattern that repeats until we awaken. In the trance, I have seen these 3 possibilities, not as mere theory, but as living choices that hang over every age of man. One might ask why they are set before us, but the law is plain, for creation itself mirrors the will of those who dwell within it. If men sow discord, the field of reality grows weeds, and if they sow wisdom, the field brings harvest. Thus, the three roads are not distant futures. They are doors that open according to the mind of the race. Look back to the antediluvian world, a people who sought knowledge beyond their maturity and brought upon themselves a flood that cleansed but also destroyed. This was the first road. Look then to the wandering tribes who received a covenant, but again and again turned aside, hesitating, doubting, delaying the promise. This was the second road. And look now upon the modern world, where machines think, where unseen energies are harnessed, where the very fabric of matter is questioned. And you may see the third road, the revelation that our reality is itself an echo of something higher. You who listen, which road do you believe we are on today? Do you sense that mankind edges toward self-ruin with weapons and division? Or that we stand paralyzed in fear, unwilling to step into the gifts of spirit? Or do you perceive that we are already within a great design, learning to recognize the patterns written by divine intelligence? The choice of road is not made by kings or rulers alone, but by every soul through the vibration it carries through the love or hatred it plants into the unseen field. These three roads are not prophecy fixed forever. They are living options renewed in every generation. The soul that understands this walks carefully, for it knows that the smallest decision echoes far, whether destruction, denial, or discovery. The future is sown each day, and the law is faithful to return what we plant. The vision that comes to me is of mirrors reflecting endlessly into one another, each frame containing an image that is not separate, but a repetition of what came before, slightly altered, slightly delayed, yet belonging to the same pattern. In this way, civilizations create their own likeness, for when a people reach a certain height of understanding and power, they shape realities that resemble their own beginnings. Just as a seed contains the memory of the tree and the tree produces seeds again, so too does creation fold in upon itself, repeating its lessons until the soul learns the heart of the law. The ancient teacher spoke of worlds within worlds, heavens stacked upon heavens, the ladder seen by Jacob in his dream, the wheels within wheels seen by Ezekiel, all symbols of nested realities that mirror one another. What men of philosophy in later ages would call simulations, the prophets already knew as reflections of the greater mind, each layer a garment placed upon the soul to aid its growth. Imagine a craftsman who fashions a clay vessel, and within that vessel he places another, and within that yet another, until a series of forms is hidden one inside the other. The outer shape can be broken, yet the inner remains untouched. And so the soul is safeguarded within many coverings. In the records of spirit, it is clear that once a race acquires the gift of shaping its own world, it does not create only once. It repeats, making many versions, each one an echo of the original, and those echoes in turn give rise to more. This is why life appears as an endless chain of beginnings and endings, why patterns repeat across centuries, why the faces of men today carry the same questions that troubled the ancients. There is a continuity of design, like the Russian doll that opens to reveal another and another, until the final smallest form still holds the essence of all. And so it is with creation. The great mind has written into the fabric of existence a principle of recurrence, that each generation may see itself in the mirror of the past. And the future, the laws of motion, of light, of number, are written into every layer, so that no matter how deep one travels, the same order is found. To the soul, this is both comfort and challenge, for it means there is no escape from the law, only the opportunity to recognize it and live in harmony with it. These mirrors within mirrors are not illusions meant to deceive, but lessons meant to reveal, showing us that behind all forms lies the same eternal pattern. What one calls free will is the choice of how to move within the reflection, but the mirror itself is held by hands greater than our own. Thus, the universe we know may be only one image among countless others, each one teaching, each one preparing, until at last the soul awakens to the source of light that causes all mirrors to shine. In my times of quiet seeking, I have often listened to the voices of the wise, both living and departed, and their testimony, though varied in form, always circles back to the same mystery, that reality is not as it appears. Some who look only through the lens of science declare that the chance we dwell in the original reality is but a sliver one among countless possibilities, while others more cautious say it may be half and half, as if to admit that the ground beneath our feet could dissolve into shadow at any moment. Yet when I hear such estimates, I do not hear numbers alone. I hear the confession of the human mind struggling to measure what belongs to the eternal. I have read the philosophers who, with great care of reason, speak of worlds upon worlds, and I have seen in trance the prophets of old who told of heaven's opening and closing as curtains. And though they are divided by centuries, their words sound as one voice. For what the modern man explains with probability, the ancient seer explained with vision. And both are reaching for the same truth, that reality is layered, fragile to our senses, but firm in its unseen foundation. The scientist may speak of metaphysics, the theologian may speak of creation, but I tell you they are grasping at different sides of the same garment. There was once a scholar who told me that to speak of unseen worlds is folly, that only what can be weighed and measured is true. Yet even he confessed that when he stared long into the night sky, he felt the tug of something larger than calculation. Another spoke to me of the order in numbers, of the beauty in the spiral of galaxies, and though he called it chance, his eyes betrayed reverence, for he too had touched the hem of the eternal robe. The wise among the people, whether they hold books of scripture or instruments of science, are witnesses to the same law, that life is guided by a mind greater than our own. In visions I have seen men who deny the divine, yet believe in hidden programs, and men who deny the program, yet cling to the hand of God, and I could only smile, for both are confessing that they do not hold the source themselves. When the voices of the wise are gathered, when their testimonies are laid side by side, what emerges is not contradiction, but harmony, each one sounding a different note of the same chord. They may call it chance, they may call it providence, they may call it simulation, they may call it creation, but beneath all names there is one truth. And in that truth is the assurance that though the world may appear fragile, though it may be questioned and doubted, it is not void. The voices of the wise testify that reality is alive, ordered, and purposeful, and whether man perceives it dimly or clearly, he is always surrounded by the mind that conceived him. This is the witness I carry, and this is the truth that speaks through every age. In the silence of vision I beheld the beginning, not as men speak of it in their books of science, nor as preachers thunder of it from their pulpits, but as a single act of will. When the void stirred and law was born, the records of Scripture declare that the earth was without form, and darkness lay upon the face of the deep until the Spirit moved and said, "Let there be light." And light appeared. The scholars of the present age tell another story, that all the stars and planets once lay compressed into a point smaller than a seed, and in a moment of fire beyond imagination it burst forth into space and time themselves. Though their words differ, the essence is the same. For both speak of a sudden awakening, a command that called order out of nothingness, a beginning that was not gradual but decisive. Before that instant there was no measure of time, no space in which to walk, only the great potential waiting to be spoken into form. I saw in trance that this was the turning of a key, the opening of a book that had long been sealed, and when it opened, every law of creation was written into its pages. The speed of light, the pull of gravity, the song of the atom, the course of the planets, All were woven into the fabric from the first instant, as if a master architect laid the foundation of a temple before a single stone was set. Men ask what was before, the beginning, but they stumble in circles, some pointing to quantum foam, others to divine decree. Yet the truth is not in the terms, but in the recognition that all beginnings require a will beyond themselves. Just as no melody rises without a musician, no house stands without a builder, so no universe can spring without a mind to call it forth. In that first breath of creation, the seed of every star and every life was sown, and within it the patterns of growth, decay, and renewal. 14 billion years, men say, have passed since that hour. And in that span, galaxies wheeled into their places, suns burned with fire, planets cooled, seas gathered, and from dust came the breath of man. But know this, that the beginning is not only long ago, it is present still, for the act that set the universe in motion continues to sustain it. The light that broke the darkness at the first moment still flows into every dawn. The command that birthed time still speaks through the beating of your heart. The great beginning is not finished. It is ongoing, for creation is a river, not a monument. Whether you call it the Big Bang or the Word of God, it is the same truth clothed in different garments, the assurance that behind the visible there is intention, and behind intention there is love. This is why the universe bears order, and why the soul feels meaning, for both were present at the start, and both remain until the end of all ages. There are moments when the memory of man stumbles, when multitudes recall with certainty events that the record denies, and in these fractures one may glimpse the thinness of the veil that covers our world. I have spoken with souls who insist they saw a leader die in prison and his funeral carried across the airwaves, yet history declares he walked free and lived long after. I have heard others swear the title of a beloved book bore letters now absent, or that a figure in a child's story once carried a symbol no longer seen. These are not the errors of a single mind, but the shared remembrance of millions, as if a page in the book of reality was turned back and rewritten, yet the echo of the former words still lingers in the soul. Psykphenomena, some call delusion, but the spirit within me whispers that they are the faint signals of other layers of existence brushing against our own. Just as two rivers flowing side by side may mingle their currents for a brief instant before parting again, so too may parallel records of creation touch and leave behind traces in our awareness. What men of science name the Mandela effect is to the seer a sign that reality is pliable, that the fabric of time and matter is not fixed but responsive to higher law, and what of déjà vu, that strange certainty that one has lived a moment before. Skeptics dismiss it as a trick of the brain. Yet in trance I have seen it as the soul recognizing a junction in the pattern, a point where the threads of destiny cross, or perhaps where the design itself was altered and the spirit felt the shift. The prophets spoke of times and seasons known only to God, and these sudden shocks of memory are like ripples when the divine hand adjusts the loom. They are reminders that what we call the present is not solitary, but one choice among many, a path selected from countless others. When a man dreams, he may wander through scenes that feel utterly real, only to wake and find them gone. Who then shall say that the waking memory is more trustworthy than the dream? For both are states of consciousness, and both are written in the book of the soul. To the careful heart, these glitches are not terrors, but teachings, pointing to the truth that reality is not self-sustained, that it can bend and tremble under the gaze of something greater. They remind us that we live in a world of symbols, that what appears solid is but a shifting garment. When I behold these signs, I do not despair, for I see them as whispers from the unseen, calling man to remember that he is more than clay, that he belongs to a larger story than the one his eyes record. In the breaking of memory, The eternal seeks to awaken the soul, urging it to look beyond the illusion and find the truth that endures. When all recollections fail, when I have lifted my sight into the vault of night and beheld the countless lights that adorn the heavens, I have felt both wonder and a piercing question. Why is there no voice among them? Why is there no clear sign of companions in this vast creation? Men of numbers tell us that with so many stars and so many worlds, there should be multitudes of civilizations, each reaching out, each announcing its presence across the dark, yet the silence endures, and our instruments return nothing but the hum of emptiness. This is called by the learned the paradox of the void, yet to the spirit it is not paradox but design. For in trance I have seen that the program of creation is not bound to reveal every corridor at once. The lesson prepared for man is not that he should wander distracted by endless others, but that he should face the test of his own house. As a child is not shown the whole city at once, but is kept within the circle of his home until he learns discipline, so humanity is enclosed for a season within a chamber of the universe, that it may master love and truth before meeting its neighbors. Many ask if we are alone, but the greater question is why the silence was chosen, and the answer is mercy. If men have not yet learned to live with one another on a single world, how would they bear the burden of other worlds, other races, other minds? The silence of the heavens is a mirror, reminding us that we are not yet ready to hear the chorus. Still, the absence of voices does not prove the absence of life, for life is woven into the very fabric of creation, and in the hidden realms there are watchers and teachers who observe, though they do not intrude. In the Akashic record there are lines that speak of beings who dwell in dimensions not bound by our space, whose presence brushes ours as wind brushes the cheek, yet leaves no mark. Their silence is not neglect, but a veil drawn for our protection. Consider also that the laws of this realm may be written with boundaries that confine our vision, like walls of a garden that prevent the child from straying too far. The speed of light, the vast distances, the limits of perception are not obstacles by chance, but safeguards woven into the pattern, lest the soul wander before it can walk. Some who are wise see in this silence evidence that we are the only life. But I tell you that the silence is not emptiness, but concealment. There is life beyond, but its song is muted until the time is ripe. When the race of man has lifted itself from war to peace, from pride to humility, from greed to service, then the garden wall shall open, and the voices of the heavens will be heard, not as strangers, but as brothers. Until then, the silent heavens are both a question and an answer, reminding us that the great teacher does not reveal the next lesson until the present one has been learned. I have long held that creation speaks first in number, and that number is the oldest scripture written before any alphabet could be carved in stone. When the soul is quiet, it hears this language everywhere. In the turning of the heavens, in the unfolding of a leaf, in the beating of the heart. Consider the humble sequence that begins with 1 and 1, then grows by adding what has come before. 1 and 1 make 2. 2 and 1 makes 3. 3 and 2 make 5. Then 8, then 13, and onward without end. This ladder of increase is not a trick of the mind. It is a path the Creator traced into living forms. Count the petals of the lily, and you will often find 3. The buttercup yields 5, the chicory 21, the daisy 34, and the spiral by which these petals set themselves upon the stem follows the same secret measure, each new growth taking its place, so that none steals the light of its neighbor. Trees send out branches and steps that echo the same rule, shaping their crowns to receive light and give air. In the hive, the female and the male are found in a proportion that draws near to the golden measure, and in the body of man, the pattern repeats with gentle insistence one nose, two eyes, three great segments to a limb, 5 fingers and 5 toes. Measure from the shoulder to the elbow, then from the elbow to the tip of the hand, and you will see a harmony that returns again and again. Even the ladder of life within us bears witness. For the winding stair of that subtle substance by which heredity speaks is known to span 34 parts in length and 21 in width, a marriage of numbers that belong to the same family. Look also upon the seashell that climbs in widening circles, and the storm that gathers upon the wide water, and the river of stars that bends across the night, for all of them curve in the same quiet way. What the learned name proportion, the seer names remembrance, for the world remembers the law by which it was called forth. Some will say that man is only hunting patterns in the noise, but the Spirit testifies that the noise itself yields to order when the mind is pure. If the field brings harvest, it is because a sower has gone before. And if the harvest ripens in ratios and steps, it is because the sower delights in harmony. Numbers are not cold to the soul. They are warm with meaning. They do not imprison. They reveal. They do not make the world mechanical. They make it musical. This is why a spiral can cradle a drop of rain without wasting space. Why a pine cone can carry its seeds with strength. Why a face seems fair when lines are set in calm relation. The language of numbers is the robe that form wears, and beneath the robe stands purpose. Learn to see this language and fear fades. For, the same hand that tuned the galaxies tuned your breath. And if you live in accord with that measure, choosing honesty, patience, and love, you move with the rhythm of the law. And the law in turn makes room for you. From the first spark, when man struck stone against stone to call forth fire, to the present hour where he sends voices through the air and images across oceans, the march of invention has never ceased. And with each step, the soul is offered a mirror to see how it uses the gifts entrusted to it. In the records of spirit, I beheld that invention is not merely the work of clever hands, but the unfolding of memory from a higher realm. For what man calls discovery is often only recollection of laws that were written before the earth was cooled. When a child learns to walk, he believes each step is new, yet the pattern of walking was already written in the body. So too, when man learns to bend metal or to harness electricity, he is awakening to designs long hidden. Consider how quickly the face of the world has changed. Only a generation ago, the amusements of man were simple. Games of stick and stone, songs sung in the twilight, yet now the stage is filled with images that mimic life so closely that the senses can scarcely distinguish shadow from substance. What was once crude representation has grown into likeness so vivid that men lose themselves within it. And this reveals both promise and peril. The promise is that the creative spirit is rising, that man is nearing the threshold where he may build realms as convincing as the one he inhabits. And in doing so, he approaches the mystery of his own origin. The peril is that he may forget the purpose of such power and worship the shadow rather than the source. In trance, I have seen that every leap of invention is permitted for the sake of learning. The printing of words that spread thought, the forging of engines that carry men beyond their homeland, the capture of light and sound that makes memory endure beyond death, all these are lessons set before the soul. They may be used for good to bind humanity in understanding, or for harm to chain it in fear and vanity. The march of invention is like a river that flows faster with each bend, gathering speed as it approaches the sea. And humanity now finds itself swept by currents stronger than before. Machines that think, instruments that peer into the smallest atom and the farthest star, voices that command forces invisible, all these testify that man is awakening to powers once reserved for the unseen. Yet invention is not destiny, it is opportunity. And the measure of a civilization is not what it creates, but how it uses what it creates. If the soul remembers that every tool is but a reflection of the greater law, then the march of invention leads upward, drawing man closer to the divine pattern. But if he forgets, if he believes the power lies in his hands alone, then invention becomes a chain and progress a stumbling. The records show both roads, and the choice remains. The march of invention is not merely history. It is prophecy unfolding before our eyes, reminding us that as man learns to fashion worlds, he must also learn to govern his spirit, for only then will his creations become temples of light rather than prisons of his own pride. I have seen in the visions of spirit that power without limit is not given to man, for boundaries are woven into creation, not to mock his striving, but to preserve his growth. Many ask why the universe is so vast, why the stars are unreachable, why the speed of light stands as an iron wall, and why the smallest particles conceal themselves when observed. They see these limits as obstacles, yet I have come to understand them as safeguards, like the rails along a mountain path that keep the traveler from falling into the abyss. In the records of the Akashic field, it is written that no soul is entrusted with full freedom until it learns to rule its own house. For what use would it be to give a child the keys to a kingdom when he has not yet mastered his own breath? The laws of creation are fashioned with restraint so that man may not destroy himself before he has learned to live. Consider how invention has already multiplied his reach. He commands fire, he bends the lightning, he splits the atom, and yet with each gift comes danger, for with a careless hand, fire burns, lightning kills, and the atom brings devastation. If there were no limits, if man could reach into the heart of the stars or alter the weave of time at his will, he would surely unravel the very fabric that sustains him. Thus the Creator in wisdom has hidden much from him, not to deny him, but to prepare him. I have seen in trance that reality itself may not be fully rendered until the soul approaches it. Just as in a dream, the scenery forms only when the dreamer turns his gaze. This is not a failure of creation, but its genius, for it spares the infinite cost of sustaining what is not yet needed, and it keeps the focus upon the lessons at hand. Think of a book whose pages are written but sealed, revealed only as the reader is ready. So too is the universe, given one chapter at a time. Some who are learned protest and say that the whole must exist already, that every atom is present and calculated. But I tell you, it is not so, for the pattern is more subtle. It is as if the world blooms like a flower in the sun of our attention, unfolding petals in season, keeping the rest within the bud until the hour is right, to the soul. This means that what you call limitation is in truth mercy, for it grants space to grow without bearing burdens too heavy to carry. When I beheld the destruction of former civilizations, I saw that they perished not because they lacked power, but because they gained too much too quickly and had not the wisdom to wield it. Thus the present generation is also tested, for its reach extends further than its grasp of spirit. If man learns humility, the limits of power will become gates that open in their time. But if pride blinds him, those same limits will rise as walls of judgment. The law is clear. The power of creation is infinite, but it is given in measure according to the maturity of the soul. In the quiet hours when I have been given sight, I beheld the smallest things and found there a teaching that humbles kings. For the atom and the light that moves with it do not behave as the common mind expects. They answer to a deeper law that binds matter to awareness. Men in their laboratories set a simple trial. They send a stream of tiny messengers toward a thin barrier cut with two narrow paths. And beyond that barrier, they place a screen to receive the marks of the travelers. If these messengers were only pellets of dust, they would pile in two bands that match the two paths. Yet, when the test is run, the pattern that appears is not two bands, but a fan of many stripes, as if waves from two stones thrown into water met and wove themselves together. The learned then reasoned that the messengers must be jostling one another, so they sent them one by one, giving each a clear sky to fly Yet the many stripes remained, declaring that each single messenger travels as a spreading possibility until something calls it to choose, wishing to know which doorway each one used. The men set watches at the slits to record the passage, and at once the woven pattern vanished and two sober bands returned, as if the very act of observing constrained the wanderer to become a single point and to leave the whisper of waves behind. They then removed the watcher, and the woven stripes rose again, as if the world had taken a freer breath. In time, a bolder test was conceived. They let the messenger pass the two paths unwatched, and only after it had flown beyond the barrier did they choose to look in a way that could tell whether it had behaved as a wave or a particle. And to their astonishment, their late decision wrote itself backward upon the record. The mark on the screen bore witness that the traveler had always been what the present choice required. To the spirit, this is not nonsense, but revelation, for it declares that matter wears two garments, one of possibility and one of fact, and that consciousness is the steward who bids it change clothes. I have seen further that this strange obedience is not confined to the tabletop, for the light that has crossed gulfs of space from ancient fires will arrive as a soft ripple when left in peace. Yet if man arranges his measure so that he insists upon a single track, that same light answers across the years and seals itself as a point, as if the present summons reaches the past and the past yields. What name men give this does not concern me, whether they say collapse or choice or interference, for the teaching is older than any term. It is the witness that creation is not a dead machine, but a living scripture that reads itself aloud when a mind attends. The atom is humble and yet profound. It bows to law, and the law hears the gaze of the soul. This is why prayer alters the one who prays, and through him the world, why intention laid upon honest action bears a weight beyond the sum of its parts. The mystery of the atom is that it is not merely pushed by forces, it is called by meaning, and when meaning awakens in man, the smallest things align as if at a command. Thus the foundation of matter hints at a higher foundation still, and the careful heart will learn to look with reverence. For to look is already to shape, and to shape is to share in the work that began when light was first spoken. When I have been permitted to look behind the veil, I have often been asked by earnest seekers, is it God who rules this world, or is it some great pattern that binds all things? And my answer has always been that the question itself is the fire. For whether you name the source God or program or universal law, you are trying to clothe the unseen in garments of speech. Yet the power itself is beyond name. In trance, I have seen that what men call a simulation is not different from what prophets called creation. It is an order set in motion by a mind that dwells outside time. One may say it is code. Another may say it is command. Another may say it is covenant. And all are circling the same flame. The truth is that the laws which govern light, gravity, number, and breath are not accidents. They are lines in a script written for the schooling of the soul. I have beheld souls who scoff at God, yet believe with passion in hidden architectures that sustain the universe. And I have beheld souls who dismiss the language of science, yet cling to the Almighty, and both are closer to one another than they know. For both confess that reality is not self-made, but upheld by intelligence. When miracles unfold or disasters strike, one may say it is the program adjusting, another may say it is the hand of God. But the meaning is the same, that the events of life are not random, but woven. Even suffering has its place, for the pain that presses the heart may be the very chisel that frees it from pride. And joy has its place, for it is the song that reminds us of home. I do not fear whether we live in base reality or in a reflection, for reflection too is real to the one who learns within it. As it is written, the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. And so the weight of our actions remains whether the world is clay or dream. If this is a divine plan, then every kindness strengthens the whole. And if this is a crafted pattern, then every cruelty leaves a scar in the fabric. Either way, responsibility is ours. In the end, the distinction between God and the great pattern dissolves, for the pattern is the mind of God expressed, and God is the pattern's source and sustainer. What then remains for the soul but to walk humbly, to love mercy, to do justice, to keep faith? I have looked upon the record of ages and seen civilizations fall, not because the law failed, but because they forgot the law was alive. I have seen others rise in light when they remembered that each act carries eternal consequence. And so I leave you with this. Reality may be mirror or dream. It may be a simulation or a kingdom. Yet within it, your choices are seeds, and the harvest will not fail. Live then as though every word is inscribed upon the eternal record, for it is live as though every act shapes the worlds to come. For it does, and when at last the veil is lifted, you will not tremble at whether it was God or the great pattern. You will rejoice that you walked faithfully in the truth that was always before you, silent yet unbreakable, guiding you home